Hi everyone and welcome back to another video in the Scratch Tower Defense game tutorials. I'm Masi.
And I'm Zach.
And today we're going to finally add the challenge of our game by adding in the bad guys. Now you'll notice that while we go through this, adding in the bad guy is almost identical to adding in the guard. And how does that make any sense, you might ask? Well, it's because besides the controller, where we can use left and right to move the guard, the bad guys are animated in the exact same way, and the only difference is that they are controlled by, let's call it AI, to move towards the fort and start slashing it.
Yeah, so even though you're not controlling the bad guys, the concepts that we'll show you in this video are very similar to the one that you did on the guard.
Actually, not just very similar, I think they're exactly the same.
Well, there are a few changes along the way.
So let's jump into Scratch and take a look at where we left off so far. So we have our guard, we fixed all of his animations, and he's just ready to start firing off at bad guys. So let's give him a challenge. We'll start by hovering over the cat and choosing the Upload Sprite button. And we want to choose the enemy. Okay, so there's no enemy attack sprite, so which one should we choose?
Well, let's start with walk 1 to walk 8.
Okay, so we'll just go with walk 1. And as we did before, I'm just going to change the name of the enemy to just enemy.
Alright, so we add in the sprite first before we add the costumes. It's my bad, I forgot about that step.
Cool, no worries. Now, right off the bat, few small little changes. This guy is massive. He's a giant.
That's more of a troll than a orc.
Okay, so let's go ahead and change the size down here. And we'll play around with it. Let's see, about 75. Still looks a little bit large compared to the guard. Let's bring him down to 60. What do you think?
That looks right.
Okay. Should we drop in the rest of his costumes now? Since we already know we'll be doing this later, I guess while we are uploading.
Yeah, let's do the
well.
costumes.
So we click on the Costumes tab, hover over the cat, click on the Upload Costumes, and we don't need to upload walk 1. We can start from walk 2, hold down Shift, and then click walk 8, and everything in between will be selected. Then click Open, and they'll all be placed in their correct order.
Just for concept's sakes and to keep consistency, we should add in that last costume that I did see.
Oh, the one where he gets hit.
Right, because we are going to have to do the code avoiding that anyways, because it's going to come into play later.
That's good. Now, since we've been through that before, we already know how to avoid it. So let's go ahead again, choose a costume. We'll upload costume and choose the enemy hit. And we'll take him and we'll drag this costume all the way to the top so that this one becomes number 1. Okay, now you can see it's almost identical to our guard. In fact, we have 9 costumes here and the guard also has 9 costumes. So let's head back to our code and we'll start adding in his animations. As usual, we begin with a when green flag clicked. Next, we're going to get the old pal of the green flag forever. And then we can head over to looks and choose a next costume piece and place that inside the forever. And let's see how this looks.
Alright, so
he's a very angry little orc.
Animation is plain.
Okay, so just like before, we had the same issue where the timing is off. So let's head over to control and we'll grab a weight. And we know from the last time that we set the weight to 0.005 and that seemed to work out fine. Let's have a look. Okay.
So yeah, the speed is fine. Well, of course now some refining needs to be done on the animation.
And I can guess I think you can guess what we're going to do next. Forever gets his old pal, if then. And we're going to place an if then piece underneath the weight. Next, let's head over to operators and we'll grab in an equals to piece. And since we know that our last costume is number 9, we'll add a 9. And then head over to looks and we want the piece that says costume number. And we're going to place that next to the 9. So if costume number is equal to 9, then we need to switch to the costume walk 1. Okay, so if you remember how this works, the walk cycle will start from the enemy hit. It'll go all the way down to 8, and we don't want it to start with enemy 8. We want it to start with walk 1. So we are saying that whenever it reaches walk 8, it should just go back to walk 1. And let's see how this looks.
Alright, there we go. The animation is playing how it was supposed to.
It looks really, really good. But I think you can see a problem here.
I do.
Seems to be, I don't know how to describe it, like jumping forward and backwards, even though he's supposed to be in the same position. Let's just drag him up so you can have a better look at that. So what is going on there?
Well, for this we have to go into the costumes tab and you'll see that he's actually off-centered. So when Scratch imported it, it didn't know where the center of it was supposed to be and just chose a general center. So we have to manually set that center.
Okay, so to do this, head over to the costumes tab, click on the first costume, and then click on convert to vector. Next, right on the top, the first tool is the select tool. Choose that one. And now we'll be able to drag the character around. Now, to set the center in Scratch, we need to align the center with this point in the middle of the screen. It looks like a little crosshair, like a small target. Now, we can see where Scratch thinks the center should be. This little blue plus is where Scratch thinks that the center of our sprite needs to be. But we know that that's not correct because that point could change in every single sprite. So we want the center to be the center of his head. So we'll drag him and put that crosshair in the center of his head. And that should do it. It doesn't need to be absolutely perfect. As long as all of them are in the general area, it'll work perfectly. So let's go to the next one. Walk 1, convert to vector, choose the select tool, and put his head in the center. And we'll do one more, and I'll just speed through them so you don't have to watch the entire process. Okay, and for the final one, convert to vector, choose the select tool, and set his center. Let's go back to our code, and actually before we move on, let's test it out to see if what we did worked. Have a look at that.
There we go.
You can see he's still kind of vibrating a little bit back and forth, but we're not going to notice that once he starts moving.
Right, so just a quick explanation. Right here, he's actually shield bashing.
Okay, so you're giving us some lore.
Yeah, it's some lore.
Okay, I see.
He's not just slicing, he's also shield bashing.
So what's that for? It's like cause intimidation?
It's an intimidation tactic.
Cool. Well, I'll tell you what's going to be even more intimidating when this chap starts running towards the fort and starts to slash it. Okay, so to add the movements for the enemy, we're going to grab another green flag clicked. Then we're going to grab a forever. And we're going to head over to motion and choose a change Y by. Okay, and here we'll have to set the speed. So let's leave it at 10 for now. And while we're at it, let's set the collision detection for when he hits the fort. So we're going to head over to control, if then, and place that underneath the change Y. And then we're going to say sensing, touching, and change mouse pointer to fort. Now here we don't need to choose the color because he'll be touching the entire fort, the entire wall of the fort. So
right, our guard was already touching the fort, so we couldn't use that.
Correct. And then we're going to head over to motion again, and we're going to take another change Y, and this time set it to -10. So let's set the enemy in his starting position and let him go. Oh my.
That was fast.
That was way too fast. Let's see that again.
Wow.
Okay, so that's definitely the wrong speed.
That is scary, you were right.
Yeah, and I imagine if he was a giant doing that. And we set this to -5. Let's see that.
Still a bit fast.
Should we type 3? And I guess in this part, it's we can mention there's no right or wrong answer here. If you feel like the game will be challenging if he's moving that fast, then I think you should leave it at that. What do you think about that? I think this is a good speed to work with.
I think that's a generous enough speed.
Okay, and I think the final thing we'll do before we conclude this lesson is let's add his starting position. So I'm just going to move these two pieces down, and we'll add in another green flag clicked. So similar to what we've done with the guard and the fort, we've set their starting positions. We just need a go to piece. So motion, go to, and the X will be 0. And let's set the Y position to -200. And that should put him in the center. And there you go. So as he reaches the fort, it looks like he's stopping and now he's just attacking the fort, trying to break into it.
That was done intentionally.
That
Why
was the plan.
shield bastion now turns into attacking.
That's cool. So that's it for this lesson. In the next one, we'll start to randomly spawn in the enemy.
Right, so they'll be coming in from all over the place and moving up, and it's gonna be kind of a tough time for the guard.
And a little bit tough time for us, since we'll be covering a new concept, which is clones. But that's for the next one.